Hey guys, my name is Haley and today I'm going to be filming a recently read video. So let's just get into the lots of books I've read since January. The first book I read since my last wrap up was The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson, and this was such a surprise for me. I almost unhauled this. It was in my unhaul pile, and then I think it was Oshina that read it and she really liked it, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a chance. I'm so happy I did not unhaul this because I binge read the whole trilogy, and I only owned the first one, so I had to wait for the other books to come in through Amazon in like over the course of a week, and I inhale read the whole trilogy. I love this world. I love Leah is the main reason I adore this series. She is such a good, feisty, strong-willed main character, but not in an annoying way, just in a she knows who she is and what she wants and how she handles things. She doesn't take crap from anybody. It's just, she's such a great main character. And this does have a love triangle kind of thing, but I definitely preferred one of the guys over the other for Leah. I also really love how political this series is. I've been really into the political fantasies, so if you have any recommendations for that, if I don't talk about it in this video, please let me know because I'm obsessed. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished, although I was reading it throughout most of January, was Iron Gold by Pierce Brown. This is the continuation of the Red Rising trilogy. I buddy read this with Tina because we buddy read the original series last year and loved it. I believe I gave this 4.25 stars, somewhere around there, around a 4-star. I loved being back with our characters. I loved being back in this world. I loved how political this was, but something about it just wasn't as exciting as the last two Red Rising books were for me when we read the trilogy last year. Which, to be fair, I didn't really like the first book, Red Rising, that much either, so maybe I just don't like his first books as much as the other ones. I don't know. I think this is just a really good setup for what the rest of this part of the series is going to be. I did like our newer characters. I didn't like Lysander. I kind of liked Lyria, but she really got on my nerves a lot of the time too. Darrow's being an idiot in this most of the time. But I did like Ephraim, which apparently other people didn't, which I thought was surprising. I just found him really interesting as a character, even though he's kind of like a horrible person most of the time. But yeah, I gave this 4.25, and I cannot wait for the next book in this series. I love Pierce Brown's writing so much. His writing has improved a ton since Morningstar. The next book I finished was The Heart of Betrayal, which is the second book in the Remnant Chronicles. This I gave, I believe, a 4.75 out of 5 stars. It was almost 5 stars for me, and I normally, don't love second books and trilogies, but this one was so good. I loved the politics, I loved her working to get out of the situation that she's in this book. I loved the back and forth and the love triangle, which is surprising because most of the time I'm not a fan of love triangles, even though I had a preference the entire time. And once again, I cannot stress how much I love Leah. I love her so much. She's so smart and she's so strong-willed, and I just highly recommend this trilogy if you've never read it. I heard the hype on BookTube a couple years ago, I think, when the first one came out, because of the premise of the first book was really interesting, but I had no idea I was going to love it as much as I do. Next up, I finally finished Resisting Happiness by Matthew Kelly, and I give this 5 out of 5 stars. It's incredible. It would relate to literally anyone in your life. It is a Christian nonfiction talking about the idea of resisting, wanting to be happy, and how we just do that naturally as humans a lot of the time. The only reason this took me so long to read is because I was literally, every chapter something would strike me and I would have to put the book down and just sit and think about it for a while, because it's so true. It has so many truths and so many good insights to being a human being and how our brains works, which I thought was really interesting and highly recommend. I've read other books by Matthew Kelly before and I've liked all of them. And then I read The Beauty of Darkness, which is massive, and I read it in 2 days. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is probably one of my favorite trilogy finales ever, series finales. It was just So good. Also, I don't know if I've mentioned yet, Mary Pearson apparently wrote Scribbler of Dreams, if you've ever read that. It's an older contemporary from like the early 2000s, I think, which I read over and over and over in high school, and I had no idea that this was the same author until I finished this book, and I was like, how did I not know that? I loved that book as a kid. I wonder if I would like it now, because I'm not super into contemporary, but I think I would love it for nostalgia reasons, if nothing else. And then me and Kate tried to buddy read A Darker Shade of Magic. Keyword being tried, because neither of us got past the midway point. We tried so hard. There were a couple times where we would like go, oh, we'll give it another couple chapters, and then we would get a couple pages into that next chapter and be like, oh, I hate it so much. It just makes me so mad. But yes, this was just incredibly tropey, and I'm really sad because I've liked all the other Victoria Schwab books that I've read, and I don't know what it was. Actually, I do know what it was. What's his name? Kel was super tropey. I hated Lila, which I knew was a possibility going into it that I wasn't gonna like her, because I've heard that from other people that don't like this series. It's because of Lila. I had the second book, but I will be unhauling both of them because I have no intentions of reading this trilogy. It's just not on my list anymore. And next, I was going to show you the covers on the Kindle, but my Kindle is dead, and I'm using my phone to film, so I have nothing to show you, and I don't know how to do the thing on my phone to put the pictures up, but I'll just talk about all three of them at once. I read Every Heart a Doorway, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shauna Maguire, which are the three novellas currently in the Wayward Children's trilogy. No, it's not a trilogy, it's definitely a series now, never mind. And I liked them, kind of. They're fine. They're really short, so they're really fast to read. And I like the concept of the different doorways and how they lead to different worlds, and the concept of children that came back from magical worlds and have to reintroduce themselves to society when they feel like they're in the wrong world. But I felt, okay, my biggest problem with these was I felt like at certain points in the book, for no apparent reason, one of the characters would mention something like weirdly inappropriate, and it wouldn't have anything to do with what was going on. They would just say it as if the book was trying to prove that it was an adult book and not YA or anything younger, and it felt strange, and I didn't really like it. I don't even remember the girl's name. There's a girl in the first book that's kind of like weird and like crazy, and she says off the wall things all the time, and she would just say random sexual things about herself, and I'm like, why would you say that to someone you just met? I don't understand. But anyways, my favorite of the three was Down Among the Sticks and Bones, because I really like Jack as a character. I gave the first one 3 stars, I gave the second one 3.5 stars, and I gave the third one 2 stars, and I did not really like that one at all. Not really a fan of the series. Sorry. I'm not sorry, I just really don't like them. I also buddy read this with Tina. We buddy read Iron Gold in January, and then this one in February, and that is Elantra by Brandon Sanderson. I read the Mistborn trilogy last year, really liked it, wanted to start back at the beginning of his books and then read them in, I think, publishing order is what the order I'm doing. I don't remember. We read Elantris. It was a reread for Tina, but it was my first read for me, and I really liked this. Again, it's very, very political. I really liked the main characters. I liked Serene. I liked Hrathen, I think his name is, and I really liked Raoden, who I would call Raoden the main character, but it could be argued that any of those three are the main character because it's told from all of their perspectives. I loved the politics. I loved Elantris itself. I described it as sentient zombies is essentially what the people in Elantris that used to be gods are now. The basic premise is that 10 years ago there was a city called Elantris, and the people there would wake up one morning and be basically gods, and they could do this sort of magic. And then one day, all of a sudden, the magic disappeared and the city fell to ruin, but the thing that used to cause these people to become gods is still happening, except the magic doesn't work anymore. So instead of becoming gods, those people become essentially zombies. Like, their bodies die, and they're slowly dying, and they don't need to eat anymore. And anytime you injure yourself, like stub your toe or something, that pain stays with you forever. Like, that's just you for the rest of eternity, and you can't die. So basically the only way out is to lose your mind, like if your conscious disappears. And I really, really loved that premise. And I think it held up in this really well, because I'm always looking for like zombie books, and like this is a really cool fantasy twist on zombies, which I really liked. Next up I read I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This was a really fast, took me 2 hours to read thriller. The basic premise is this girl and her boyfriend are going to meet his parents. They're driving out in the middle of nowhere during like a snowstorm, and the entire time she is considering ending the relationship with him. That sounds really boring, kind of. Like, the setting itself sounds interesting. I feel like the girl wants to break up with her boyfriend doesn't sound that exciting, but it turns into so much more than that once you get towards the end. And the only reason I didn't give this 5 stars is because the ending was very confusing, but I feel like it would make a lot more sense if I reread it. And like, I think the last couple pages even say that, like, if you reread this book, it'll make more sense. And I'm like, oh, but I just read the whole thing. I don't want to reread it right now, even though I kind of do. But if you're looking for a really short, really fast-paced thriller for like Halloween, please read this. It was really, really good. It was really well written, and it just has this really uneasy atmosphere that just builds and builds and builds as the book goes on, and you're all of a sudden realizing how uneasy you are, even though you're not sure why. And that, I think that's the best way to describe this. But I gave it 4 stars. Highly, highly recommend. Please read it if you like thrillers. And then I read Full Moon, which is the second book in the Dresden Files. I'm slowly making my way through this series. I gave this one 3 stars because, as you might guess by the title and the cover, it is about werewolves, kind of, and I don't really like werewolves, so this is not going to be my favorite regardless, but I gave it 3 stars and I'm excited to continue with this series. There's just so many books. Then I read The Winter's Curse by Marie Rutkoski, and I'm kind of disappointed in this one. I gave it 3 stars. I don't really love Kestrel, which is like the complete opposite of the Remnant Chronicles, which I thought this trilogy would be similar to it in feel, but it's not at all. I don't love the writing style. I feel like the pacing was really weird and rushed. Felt like the romance was a little insta-lovey and strange. I did really like the musical aspects of this, and the politics were really interesting, but those were the only things that really kept my interest. But I am going to continue with this trilogy and see how I feel. But this was a 3-star read. Then last, I finished this yesterday, and that is Obsidian by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. And I've been waiting for this book for so long. I read like Illuminae not too long after it came out. I read Gemina the day before it came out because it came in early in the mail, and this came in a day early in the mail before the book was even released. Again, thank you, Amazon. But I love this series. I love this trilogy. I love the format. I love the covers. Like, it's beautiful. If you like sci-fi at all, please, please read this. This has one of my favorite AIs ever, and I'm obsessed with AIs because of this series, and I had many, many feelings reading this, and I cried several times. And that's all I can really say about it, because it's the last book in a trilogy. Oh, those don't even fit in frame, but these are all most of the books that I can hold in my hands right now that I read in February and half of March. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time.